Welcome, brave soul, I am the forgotten storyteller. Before we begin, tap that like button if you dare, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from. And if you make it to the end of this video, I hope to see you in the next story. I hope you're ready, because I am. Let's begin. Our story sets sail on the edge of a chill, where the wind forgets its name, and time hums quietly through the bones of an old place. A place with tall windows, arched ceilings, and staircases that sigh beneath quiet footsteps. We begin at Wintermere Academy. Set deep in the Vermont woods, where the evergreens lean in like eavesdropping old men, Wintermere was once a prestigious boarding school, built in 1889. Long halls lined with ancient oil portraits, fireplaces of cold stone, and chandeliers that never seemed to stop swaying, even when the air was still. The building, students would say, was always just a little too cold. Even in spring. Even in rooms where the radiators hissed and clanked through the night like restless metal hearts. But Kelly, she was not a student. Not anymore. She was a visitor. A quiet presence among the living memories of the school. Here to spend a weekend in one of the unused dorm rooms. Maybe for a writing retreat. Maybe just to get away from the noise of the modern world. To rest, to breathe in stillness. The headmistress, soft-spoken and gray-eyed, handed Kelly a brass key with a black ribbon. "Room 313, she said. "The East Wing. Just you and the wind." The East Wing is the oldest part of the school. It smells faintly of old paper, wax, and something sweeter, something like dried flowers. Kelly's footsteps echoed as she climbed the wooden stairs, the rail polished smooth from a century of careful hands. The air was different here, somehow heavier but softer, like the hush before snowfall. Room 313 opened with a gentle creak. Inside, a narrow bed with an embroidered quilt, a wardrobe tall enough to hide in, a desk by the window, and an old radiator beneath a flaking, time-worn windowsill. Kelly dropped her bag and sat for a moment. The quiet felt thick, almost touchable. And the light. Oh, the light through the lace curtain moved like water. Everything swayed, slowly, softly, like it remembered something. She breathed in, let her shoulders drop. She was here to relax after all. That night, she lit a candle by the bedside. Its flame flickered as if it were listening. And outside, the wind picked up. She heard it teasing the corners of the building, sliding its long fingers between the cracks, whispering in a language that no one had spoken in many, many years. Kelly pulled the covers up, and slowly, she began to drift. But just before sleep found her, she heard it. Tap, tap, followed by another tap, somewhere in the wall. Not loud, not harsh, just gentle and quite rhythmic, as if someone was knocking, politely, from inside. She sat up, and waited. Just listening, but all she heard was silence. Then, again. Tap, tap, tap. She glanced at the radiator. It hissed quietly, but this sound wasn't from there. It was further back, behind the wall itself. There was no fear yet, only curiosity. Her fingers trailed along the peeling wallpaper. It's just an old building, she told herself. It could be the building's old pipes or squirrels. History groaning in its sleep. Still, when morning came, Kelly asked the headmistress about it. The woman only smiled, a tired smile. Room 313? Yes, it does tend to have visitors. Kelly blinked. Visitors? What do you mean visitors? Oh, the headmistress said, as if remembering she shouldn't have said it. I only mean, the building is old. Sounds carry strangely in the East Wing. Later in the library, Kelly found a worn blue ledger, a guest book, and she noticed something strange. Several names, scrawled in careful pen, had notes beside them. Room 313, tapping at night. Room 313, cold breath by the bed. Room 313, something in the walls. One entry from 1954 read simply, Room 313, woke up with my own voice whispering behind the wall. She stared at that sentence for a long time, and outside the light shifted. The shadows of the trees stretched longer across the floor. That night, Kelly slept with the candle burning, and still the tapping returned. Tap, tap, tap. Softer now, like fingernails brushing hollow wood. And this time, the radiator sighed. And just for a moment, she felt it. A breath which was cool right at her neck. Kelly didn't speak of the breath. Not at breakfast, not to the other guests, not even to herself. She simply wrapped her sweater tighter around her frame, and sipped her tea, and tried not to look too long at the empty chair across from her. The one she swore had creaked quietly just as she entered the dining room. The day passed in a sort of gauzy stillness. The trees outside bowed low, caught in a wind that didn't seem to move anything else. Inside, Kelly wandered the grounds, through classrooms left untouched, chalk still dusting the boards, through chapel doors that opened on their own with a sigh, and down to the laundry cellar, where time had rusted everything except the silence. There was a strange calm in it all, like the school was exhaling and Kelly was inhaling something older than air. That evening, she sat at the desk in room 313, the candle flickering beside her, casting long fingers of shadow across the walls. She opened a leather notebook and began to write. She wasn't sure why. The words came on their own. Fragmented impressions of the tapping, of cold breath on warm skin, of her name whispered like a prayer behind the plaster. She paused. Had she heard her name? She waited, held her breath. The radiator let out a low hiss, followed by a slow, aching knock. Tap, tap, tap. But tonight, it wasn't alone. There was a sound beneath it, a drag, a shift, like something being moved, crawling, perhaps, or repositioning its slumbering limbs. Kelly stood, moved to the wall. The wallpaper here was older, floral, faded, a little damp at the corners. She ran her hand along the edge, then pressed her ear gently to the cold surface. At first there was nothing, only her own pulse, and then a whisper, very faint, very clear. A child's voice. "I don't want to be here anymore." Kelly jerked back, breath caught like a moth in her chest. But she didn't scream. No, she held it in. Something about the voice wasn't threatening. The voice sounded tired. That night, she slept with the candle burning again. And beside her, tucked beneath her pillow, she placed a small note. Just 3 words. "Who are you?" She didn't expect an answer. But in the morning, the note was gone. And in its place, a single daisy wilted, pressed flat as if it had been kept in a book for decades. Kelly didn't leave. She told herself she should. That she should pack her things, thank the headmistress, and drive away before the dusk returned. But the truth pulled at her ribs. Something had been waiting, and now it had noticed her. Down in the library's archival room, she searched through bound volumes of Wintermere's history. Dust danced in the shafts of light above her, and the silence felt like a secret cupped in warm hands. She found it in a staff log from 1913. A note scrawled in spidery script. "Another illness in East Wing. Room 313. Children say the walls knock back. We sealed the tunnel entrance just in case." What tunnel? Her stomach turned slowly, like an old key in a reluctant lock. Kelly flipped pages feverishly until she found it, an architectural sketch of the original building. Behind the East Wing bedrooms, a narrow shaft, a hidden passage that once ran the length of the hall, labeled simply as the transfer tunnel. She ran a finger down the inked lines. Beside it, a note. Used during epidemic to remove the dead without alarming students. And below it, sealed 1915. But the wall still knocked. That evening, as dusk laid its cold fingers across the stone floors, Kelly walked the East Wing corridor with a candle in her hand. She passed each door slowly, their brass handles cooled, their numbers dulled by time. At the far end of the hall, just past room 319, she found it. A patch of wall slightly recessed. The wallpaper mismatched, newer. She tapped it with a knuckle. It was hollow. She set the candle on the ground and pulled at the edge. The wallpaper tore slowly, like peeling back skin. Beneath, wood paneling and a seam where a hidden door had once opened. Kelly leaned close. The wood smelled of damp earth, of iron and decay, and something fainter. Like lavender, a child's scent. She whispered softly, barely breathing the words. "Are you still there?" And from behind the panel, a whisper replied, "Yes." Kelly didn't move. She stayed crouched before the wooden panel, her breath barely misting in the air. She felt the chill rise up from the floorboards, as though Wintermere Academy was remembering something, or someone. The voice behind the wall was small and slow, as if each syllable was being exhaled from deep within a forgotten lung. "I'm still here, but I don't remember my name." Kelly pressed her palm flat against the panel. "I'll help you," she whispered, unsure of where the words were coming from. "I'll find your name." And for the first time, the tapping stopped. The next day, Kelly returned to the library. She no longer looked at the other guests. She no longer noticed if the lights flickered, or if the chandelier above the reading room swayed gently even when there was no breeze. She dug through yearbooks now, through rosters, class photos, letters home from long ago. And then, in the 1914 volume, she found her. A girl standing at the edge of a class photograph, hands clasped in front of her pinafore. Dark hair parted down the middle. Expression unreadable. except for the eyes. Kelly knew them, she had felt them, through the wall. The caption beneath the photo read, Marjorie Alcott, age 10. Room 313. Marjorie. Kelly closed the book slowly. Her pulse was calm, almost steady, as if some part of her had been waiting for this. That evening she returned to the east wing. The wallpaper still torn, the candlelight casting a warm orange glow against the hidden door. She crouched again, touched the wood. I found you, she whispered. Your name is Marjorie Alcott. For a long moment there was nothing, and then a soft hum. A child's voice, humming a lullaby without words. Just a sound, very low and swaying like branches in wind, and the panel shifted. Not open, just a small release of pressure, as if the tunnel behind it had taken a breath. Kelly stayed, listening, feeling the warmth of the flame beside her, and the cold curling out from the wood. Then Marjorie spoke again. They said they'd come back for me, but I got too cold, and the walls got too quiet. Kelly's eyes stung, not with fear, but with grief, a soft, ancient ache. I'm here now, she whispered, and from the wall very faintly. Then I won't be alone. That night, Kelly dreamed of the tunnel. She walked barefoot through the narrow passage, its walls rough and splintered, its ceiling brushing her head. She carried a candle and it never went out. In her dream, the walls whispered softly, telling her secrets, little things, where the lost keys had gone, where the ghosts of old letters still clung to their ink, and where Marjorie waited. Kelly reached a chamber at the end, lit by nothing but the glow from her hands. And in the center, a small wooden bed, perfectly made, dustless. On the pillow, a daisy. She woke before dawn. The candle beside her had burned to a stub, and on the floor, by the radiator, was a second daisy. Very fresh, as if it was picked just seconds ago, its petals still damp with dew. The final day of her stay, Kelly packed her bag in silence. Room 313 felt heavier now, but not with dread, with memory, with presence, with breath still hanging in the air. She slipped one of the daisies into her notebook, pressed it between the pages that held her first note. Before leaving, she placed a new one beneath her pillow. This one read, You are not forgotten. She left the key on the desk, and paused only once more in the hallway, to place her hand gently on the mismatched wallpaper, where the tunnel waited in hush. She whispered, Sleep well, Marjorie. And for the first time in 3 nights, there was no tapping, only the wind, sliding softly down the corridor, carrying with it the faintest echo of a child's hum. Years passed. Kelly never told many people about what happened in room 313. Only once, quietly, to a friend who wouldn't laugh. One who knew how some places seem to hold their breath for 100 years, just waiting for the right voice to say hello. But in the quiet of her own life, she never forgot. Sometimes she would catch herself pausing by an old radiator, just to listen. Other times she'd hear tapping in the walls of unfamiliar buildings and wonder, just for a moment, if Marjorie had followed her, or if there were others, still sleeping, still waiting. Kelly went on to write about quiet things. Stories where the monsters weren't evil, just lonely. Stories where the cold was only dangerous if no one came back to check the door. Where forgotten children in forgotten places were found again and remembered. But she never wrote about Wintermere by name. Some places deserve to stay secret, until the right person needs them. It was a full decade later when Kelly returned. The invitation arrived in the mail, no return address, just an envelope sealed with dark green wax. Inside, a short, handwritten note. Restoration complete. The tunnels have been opened. You should see what you helped us remember. Signed with just the letter M. Kelly didn't need to ask who sent it. The school looked nearly the same but warmer somehow. Renovated, yes, gleaming floors, a brighter front hall, fresh ivy on the stone. But the quiet was still there, soft as breath on the back of your neck. The headmistress was gone, retired, or maybe just vanished like mist. A younger woman greeted Kelly, offering tea and a gentle smile that didn't ask questions. Room 313 had been turned into a writing retreat. A little brass plaque on the door now read, Marjorie's room. Inside, the bed had been preserved, but the wardrobe had been moved aside, revealing a narrow arch. An open passage. The tunnel. Kelly stepped through slowly, her fingers brushing the stone. The air was cool but not cold. Not anymore. Along the tunnel's length, candles now lined the floor in sconces. Each one burned low, steady, like they had been lit for a long, long time, and carved gently into the wall over and over, in careful childlike cursive. Marjorie Alcott, Marjorie Alcott, Marjorie Alcott, and beside the last one, another name recently carved, Kelly Thorne. Below it, my friend. She stood in the tunnel for a long time, breathing, listening. But there was no tapping, no whisper, only warmth, only the hush of something at peace. As Kelly turned to leave, she noticed something near the tunnel's exit. A daisy, fresh and delicate like it had just that second been picked, lying on the stone, waiting. She knelt down and picked it up, and as she did she heard it. A whisper, just one. Thank you, Kelly. Later, as the wind rustled the ivy outside the east wing, as dusk folded the sky into velvet and blue, room 313 stood quiet, but not empty. The quilt was still tucked neatly. The candle had not burned down, and beside the pillow on the desk sat Kelly's old note, faded, yellowed, but untouched by time. You are not forgotten. Let us know in the comments, would you have gone on to the tunnel?
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare,